So please take a seat, and we are going to have the new section later. Okay, I think we're going to start our new section. President Gao, our distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to join this section for the 2016 Global Forum for Sport University. I am Mika Chen, the Dean of Office of Research and Development. This is my great honor to be the moderator for this section for Dr. Peter Perry. I have been known Dr. Peter Perry for a long time because he always had a speech on the stage. Okay, so Professor Peter Perry is the president of psychology and the director of research training and development at the University of Southern Queensland. He is also a current vice president of ASPA, Asia South Pacific Association of Sport Psychology. His area of expertise is within sport psychology, with psychometry and research management. And today, he has published more than 250 publications, including 5 textbooks. So he also has many honorary titles, such as a Fellow of the Australian Psychological Society, Australian Sport Medicine Federation, and the British Association of Sport and Exercise Science. Along with his former president of ASPA, as a sports psychologist, Professor Perry has been served many international affairs in Olympic Games, as well as served more than 100 international events for sport. With the profound knowledge as well as experience, I believe that his presentation will be very interesting and very fruitful. Please join me to welcome Professor Peter Perry.
Hello, and thank you very much for inviting me here today. It's my 3rd trip to Taipei, and I have a confession to make. Okay. I've fallen in love. That's good. with Taipei. My wife is safe. But thank you very much for inviting me back to give this talk. This is going to be a bit of a trip around the world before we talk about Australia. I have been very lucky in my career that my job has taken me to more than 70 countries. Over those years, more than 30 years, I have seen many different ways to do things in the sport context. And I have to say to start off with that there is no one correct way. The right way depends on many factors. The cultural features of the society in which you live are very prominent in determining the best way to do things. The money available, the goals of what you're trying to do. We heard from Cologne that their aim is not to generate Olympic medals. My career, mostly that has been my goal, is a performance-orientated approach. That's not the right approach, it's been my approach. So I want you to understand that. This, how do we move this on? This one? Okay. So I'll give you a little bit of my background. I've been very lucky to gate crash 9 Olympic Games. The first one was in 1992 in Winter Olympics, working with the British bobsleigh team. You've seen Danny the Eagle movie? Well, it was a little bit like that. But we got better. You can see that I've managed to go to 9. Rio was the first one I missed since 1992, so I'm still suffering from withdrawal symptoms because I am addicted to the Olympic Games. And you can see I've worked in a variety of sports, but shooting has probably been the one where I've had the most consistent impact because it is almost exclusively a psychological challenge, and so they really appreciate input from a sports psychologist. Now, as far as sport universities are concerned, I attended a sport university many years ago when the dinosaurs roamed the world. It was an interesting experience. Everybody at this university was an accomplished performer. The minimum standard to become a student was that you represented your region of England or Great Britain at the time. And so everyone studied physical education or sports sciences, but we also studied one other subject in equal measure. For me, it was English literature, and that was very nice, gave us a rounded education. But we also did lots of things together, the whole cohort of students. This picture here, this picture here, that's me on a mountain. Oh, there's others climbing up. The whole cohort, 50 of us, climbed this mountain in the French Pyrenees. It was a very memorable experience. And that built a great bond amongst the students. And we were a very, very cohesive cohort. And I think actually that development of us as whole people really contributed to performance amongst our group. And this was we had a photograph taken of all the international athletes there at the time. And I'm in there somewhere, probably with a bad haircut. Oh, sorry, I get this right. This is me here, but this was our star performer, Kathy Smallwood. She still actually has won more Olympic medals than any other British female athlete. And she won 21 international sprinting medals. Usually came second behind the East Germans actually at the time. It was a fascinating insight for me into the nature of sport university. We had a really common goal, and I've also worked at many other elite sport centres, both in Great Britain. I worked for 11 years at the National Training Centre in Bisham Abbey. This is Bisham Abbey here, with young tennis players. I also worked with the Australian Institute of Sport for a year in Brunei. This is me there in the Songkok. Oh, nice hat, and we were there, we were employed by the Sultan of Brunei to go there and improve the performance of their athletes for the Southeast Asian Games. Since 1999, I've been a regular visitor to the National Sport Institute in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. I've worked for 16 years really as a consultant at the Queensland Academy of Sport. I go regularly to Brazil. I haven't been there for a few years, but I'm going back later this year. At the Minas Tennis Club. It's not a tennis club, it's a multi-sport centre. I'll talk a little bit about that. And I did spend 3 weeks at the German Sport University in Leipzig, which used to be a sport university. It's no longer, I think, Cologne is the only sport university in Germany now. But it was an interesting insight. So I'm going to give you a little bit of international perspective on how things are done. So if we start with England, this building actually is 1,000 years old. And England used to be run from that building by Henry VIII, you know, the one with the 6 wives. And my office was his former bedroom. It was very interesting. But we used to train young tennis players. They would come there from the age of 12 and stay maybe till they were 16. And they would live there, and they would train every day, twice a day, as well as going to school. And it still is where the England football team prepare for their games at Wembley. So it is a national sports centre. Now, what did I learn in my experiences there? I have to say, in the end, we closed it. We closed the tennis school. It wasn't working. Right? We had them there all the time. We had the best medical support. We had the best sports science support. But we couldn't create a champion. The champions that Britain has produced since, like Andy Murray, and before him Tim Henman, did not come out of this system. They came out of a more private, individual system. So why did this not work? We had some success. We had the best coaches. Ian Barclay was a coach from Australia. He coached the boys. He coached Pat Cash when Pat Cash won Wimbledon in 1987. Olga Morozova was a Wimbledon finalist. She lost to Chris Evert in 1974. She coached the Russian team. So we brought in some of the best coaches in the world. We had some success. Our boys won. They won the Australian Open. They won Wimbledon doubles here. But none of them went on to become successful seniors. Now, why was that? Well, if we look at the pros and cons, this is what we call a residential training centre. This is where they live on site, and all they do is sport and study. And it has excellent facilities. We have excellent coaching. We have great scientific support. It's very time efficient. They don't have to travel to and from the venue because they live there. And it's very easy to combine sport and education. It's a very controlled environment, and that's actually part of the problem. Because apart from it being very expensive, we spent approximately $100,000 per year per person on this, and that was 25 years ago. That's not accounting for inflation. That's what we spent then. So it was very expensive, and they got homesick. These were young kids, and this is part of the thing that I've learned as a sports psychologist, listening to the stories of elite performers, that they are humans first. And even I've had men, Olympic champions, grown men, crying in my office because they missed their kids, they missed their wife. And you can never treat someone like a commodity, like they're just there to win medals, which is sometimes how the government and the funding agencies see them. The Australian team have been criticised mercilessly in the Australian media for not bringing back enough gold medals, as though they're some sort of machine. And it's this lack of normality. If you're going to set up a system that is designed to create excellence, you cannot overlook the need for normality and a roundedness of the individuals. If it's just sport education, eventually they will become disenchanted. And I think more so now than ever, because this modern generation perhaps does not naturally have the dedication of previous eras towards something. They like to multitask. They like to move from one thing to another very quickly. It's a characteristic of the generation. So eventually, these environments become claustrophobic for them. They want to get out of here. And it becomes over-controlling, and often they grow to dislike the sport that they came there to do. So we discontinued this environment. Now, this is not university level, but of course the base of the pyramid for building excellence lies prior to university. And that you have to nurture the talent without disenchanting it at that level first. This is an interesting study I came across. There used to be 38 elite sports schools in Germany involving 6,700 students. And they were evaluated empirically in 2009. And the conclusion was that attending an elite sports school results in higher individual social costs, which are not matched by comparable success in athletic competition. And that's a pretty negative conclusion to come to. And so if you are looking at a way to promote excellence, residential schools at a young age are not necessarily the way to go. I'm just going to move on to Brazil now. One of my favourite places. You just come back, huh? The Minas Tennis Club is in Belo Horizonte in Brazil, about an hour's flight from Rio. And this is a private club, right in the middle of the city, you can see. They actually have four locations, but they have 75,000 members. It's a private club. It's the largest club in South America. And within that club, they have 8 different sports. so 9 different sports, and have 1,000 athletes in intensive training. So this is not, there's no sponsorship from government or from local councils. It's all private. And they have 4 professional teams there, 2 in basketball, 2 in volleyball, of course, and they feed into, you know, Brazil won the volleyball gold medal in Rio, and a lot of these sorts of clubs feed into that. They have fantastic sports science and sports medicine programs. They don't do research, it is service oriented. They do some, but it's not of a high level. But they do start the kids off very young. Nobody lives there though, it's not residential. They start them off 4 or 5 years old, and they spend their whole lives in this club. They go right to the professional ranks. They actually have, to give you an idea of the scale of it, they have 14 swimming pools at this club. They host swimming World Cups there. And they hosted the Great Britain team. It's their holding camp for Rio 2016. Now, that's a completely different tradition. And it can work very well. I love going to this place. So all the members, the athletes are their representatives. You've got these people who've been there their whole lives at this club, and they're really proud of what their athletes go out and do. But it is club-based. If I look a little bit at Malaysia, the Institute Sukan Negara, this is where it's based, a place called Bukit Jalil in Kuala Lumpur. They hosted the Commonwealth Games there in 1998, and they have a 100,000 seat stadium, swimming pools, hockey stadiums, and so on. So it's very compact, and all the athletes come there to train every day. They receive their sports medicine, their sports science support, but again, not residential. Now, Malaysia is a small country without a very strong sporting tradition, but they just had their most successful Olympics by a long way. They won 5 medals, 3 silvers, 2 bronze, which is 3 more than they've ever won before. So it is working for them. I've had a long association, that's me in the middle with their shooting team, nice tiger tracksuits we get. That was at the Asian Games in 2006. But you can see, again, a different approach. It's centralised physically at Bukit Jalil, but they have their regional centres that feed in. These are all around the country. It's not a dissimilar scenario to Taiwan, really. Similar size population, similar size country, but they're a little bit more distributed. So again, there are various models. This is an interesting approach. What we could say, build it and they will come. If you build the best facilities in the world, good things will happen. Now, in this instance, the University of Calgary hosted the 1988 Winter Olympics. That's Eddie the Eagles Olympics. And they have the most fantastic facilities you can imagine for winter sports. And as a result, they are now the national centre, of course, for most areas of winter sports. If you look at the Beijing Sport University, closer to here, of course, similar, hosting the Olympic Games, the training venues, they have wonderful facilities. And so a lot of countries, really, I'm looking here at Great Britain. Bath University independently decided we are going to build the best facilities in Britain. No one said the Olympic teams will come there. The Vice Chancellor of the university, I think, made the decision we're going to invest in the facilities. As a result of that, they are now a national training centre and full of national teams basing themselves there. So it was really one person with a vision. The other university in Great Britain that has fantastic facilities and a long tradition is Loughborough University, and they've got the National Centre for Sport and Exercise Medicine. It's the closest in Great Britain, I think, to a sport university. If we look, this was I spent 3 weeks in Leipzig, the German University for Body Culture, as it was called. In its heyday, back in the 70s and 80s. It was a central hub for the success of the German Democratic Republic. I think now it's more or less like any other university, just with an orientation towards sports. Some elite teams still train there, but I think that it has been eclipsed by Cologne. They are your rivals, I believe. If we look at America, sorry, some of these things are getting cut off top and bottom here, but no problem. The NCAA is, I think without doubt, the most successful sport university organisation. But America doesn't have sport universities per se. Every university there has a good sports program, and you can see the sorts of money that we're looking at here. You know, they've got over 1,200 separate institutes. That's the number of universities with 450,000 athletes, 24 sports, and more than $1 billion of revenue, most of which comes from basketball. But when you've got something of that scale, it almost, the competition between the universities is almost guaranteed to breed international success. And if you look at their goal down here, can't quite read that, but it's basically success in the classroom, success on the field, and success in life. So that three-pronged approach to building a rounded individual. Now, American universities provide almost all of the American Olympic team. So this is the model that others could only dream of, I think. In Australia, we look at it, we think it's just not feasible here. There's not the commercial money that would come into university sport to support this. And I think that's true almost everywhere. So other nations like China, of course, it's a whole of nation approach to it, that the whole country is prepared to support elite sport. It's a little bit like that, getting a bit like that in Great Britain. The National Lottery provides the money. It's an average contribution per person in Great Britain of £1, say $2 per year per person. That's all. But that feeds in enormous amounts of money into sport.
What's the population of Great Britain?
It's the National Lottery.
I don't know. What's the population of?
Oh, the population is about 60 million. 61 million. So you can see about 61 million pounds per year over an Olympic cycle, 240 million. So half $1 billion approximately. Yeah? But it's not just the money. There's that other. Well, Rand will talk about that now. If you had to, Great Britain has been spectacularly successful in the last few Olympics. They put it down to the money and also to what they call marginal gains. And this is where the research comes in. The research is there to identify any aspect of performance that will deliver a marginal gain, a gain of that much. We heard about the 1 or 2%, and this may just be a tenth of 1% here and a tenth of 1% there. As an example, there was a student, a PhD student from the English Institute of Sport, did his PhD on the sleep characteristics of the boxing team. Okay? And what he found was, with particular type of bedding, on average, the boxers got 20 minutes extra sleep per night, which over the course of a month, of a year, is a lot of extra sleep. It was decided that is a marginal gain we should invest in, so they completely changed all of the bedding for the whole Olympic team on the basis of that. So these are the sorts of things we're talking about, where scientists investigate a very specific detail, they find a very applied benefit, and then the sports implement that in a big way. And it requires trust between the scientists and the sport administrators. And you can replicate that example with dozens of others. So as you can see, most of the American Olympic team are current NCAA students. Now let's look at the Australian perspective. How are we doing for time? Okay. You may have heard of the Australian Institute of Sport. Well, let's look at the background. Oh, sorry, let's look at the overall structure. If we look at elite sport, it is based on the Australian Institute of Sport, which is based in Canberra, the capital of Australia, and each state and territory, 8 of them, have their own Institute of Sport. And so the feeder is from clubs and schools into the state institutes and then on to the national institute. And you can see the other organisations perform their role, but the one I'd like to emphasise is the sports clubs. If I had to pick on one reason that Australia has been successful, it is the level of enthusiasm at the lowest level. If you drive around I live in a small town, you drive around on Saturday morning, everywhere you look, sport is happening. With the families, the parental support is amazing. So, you know, cricket, netball, these are not Olympic sports, but they are high participation sports. And it's not organised by the clubs, it's organised by the parents. And so there is this amazing groundswell of enthusiasm for sport, which eventually feeds up to the top level of the pyramid. But, of course, it's being eroded. Why? Shopping. You know, Saturday used to be sport. Now Saturday's for shopping. Sunday used to be for church. Now Sunday's for shopping as well. You know, so it's getting squeezed out of society. And if we look at the origins of the AIS, Australia had a disastrous Olympics in Montreal in 1976. Won no gold medals. That was seen as a national disgrace. So something had to be done. So the plan for the Australian Institute of Sport was hatched, and eventually, 5 years later, it opened in Canberra. Now, the nature of it in those days was that if you were identified as high potential athlete at the state level, you moved to Canberra and you lived at the AIS. And all the top coaches were there, all the scientists were there. It was fairly close to being a sport university, but without the degrees. But you did go to a local university in Canberra often. So you studied and then trained the same day. So you cut down on the travel time. And I'd have to say that it worked very well. You know, in Sydney, of course, that was our home game. We finished 4th, which was a great achievement for Australia. We had put in more money. There was more direct funding for the athletes to enable them to train full time, and that was taken away after Sydney. I worked with one. He's the greatest shooter the world has ever seen. 2 Olympic gold medals, 5 world championships. He drives a taxi for a living. He cannot, even someone of that stature cannot train full time because he can't afford to. So Australia pulled the plug on full time training after Sydney. Now you get a carryover effect. So in Athens 2004, we were still 4th. But come Beijing, it starts to show when the funding has been reduced. We went from 4th to 6th. In London, we went from 6th to 8th. Where do you think we went in Rio? From 8th to 10th. Correct. So now I think the Australian public saying we have to do something about this. We pride ourselves on being a sporting nation. It's part of the national identity, and we can't be embarrassed in this way as we would see it. So I think you'll find things will change. They supposedly had already changed. I'll come on to that. But you can see that basically we started from 2000. We started winning a lot of medals. This was the Commonwealth Games where we topped the medal table. This was the Olympics where we were 6th. And we also put a high emphasis on the Paralympics. I think you'll find that the Australian athletes will do better in the Paralympics than the able-bodied athletes did in the Olympics. So yeah. This is the kind of the way individual sports work. So if we look here, we may not be able to read this, but this is for hockey. This is for hockey. And they have their national program, and they have each of the state programs all around the country, all feeding into it. But they base themselves in one particular place. So if you are a good hockey player in Australia, you have to move to Perth, right? Because that's where the national program is based. And so but you don't, it's not a residential program, you don't move into, you have to go find yourself somewhere to live, you may go to university there. And this is at the essence of the Australian system at the moment, is that the different sports are based in different locations. So if we look, it's what we would call a decentralised model. Not everyone goes to Canberra. So, you know, if you're in diving, you move to Brisbane. If you're a cyclist, you move to Adelaide. If you're a hockey player, you move to Perth, and so on. If you're a canoe kayak, you move to the Gold Coast. Worst places to live. But not everybody likes to go, not everyone liked living in Canberra. That was part of the problem. Canberra's regarded as being boring. Sydney, Melbourne, of course, Brisbane, Gold Coast. So these are things you have to bear in mind. Because we are not a collectivist society. And this is part of where the culture influences the best approach. Australia is a very individualised Western democracy. Right? People like to make their own choices about things. So there's a limit to what you can force upon them in terms of the structure, the location, the program, and so on. Maybe different in China. Taiwan sits somewhere in the middle, an Eastern democracy, yeah, with a little bit of both. So you have to design your program accordingly. The Queensland Academy of Sport has been going now for 25 years. I've been there for 16 years. And we're very proud of the achievements of our athletes. You can see, you know, some of the details there. But this again, if Australia has a secret to the success it's had, part of it is the interstate rivalry. It is fierce. I'm from Queensland. In New South Wales, they call us banana vendors. We grow lots of bananas. We call them Mexicans because they're south of the border. Okay? And this rivalry between different states of Australia is part of the success. We are desperate to be the best state in the country, and that we want a certain percent. So we judge in Queensland our success by what percentage of the national team that goes to the Olympics we make, and of course the medals that come back. So we tend to dominate in swimming, diving, and so on. But this is part of the best of Australia, and to some extent the worst, because there is a parochial element. Sometimes we're too focused on beating the next state and not focused enough on collectively beating the rest of the world. This is a relatively new program. I was really impressed to see that daily physical education in Hungary. I will mention that when I get back, because physical education has been eroded from schools, from primary schools and secondary schools. And what's the cost of that? Childhood obesity as one of them. You know, you think of Australians being all bronze lifeguards. No, we're not. We sit fourth on the world table of obesity. It's shocking. Yeah? And the fact is, as countries get richer, they get fatter. Yeah? And you have to do something about it. Daily physical activity is certainly part of that, but it's also the base of our pyramid. And as you said, in 10, 15 years' time, these people who've done their daily physical education will be coming through as elite athletes. So this is a new initiative, I think, is to rectify the problem. About 30% of young people are overweight or obese, and adults is even higher. Up to nearly 70% of Australians are overweight or obese. So the other thing, this is what we call the ACE program, the Athlete Career and Education. We put this in place in order to build some of those things that may not be delivered via the sports program, which focus on performance, and may not be delivered elsewhere. They may, what we say, fall through the cracks. And so the ACE program is overseen by the AIS, but it is delivered locally. And the objective is to enhance the personal development as well as the performance of Australia's athletes. We have about 3,000 athletes, elite athletes, in training around the country. But these are, they put on special workshops, but they also help with their career planning. And part of the career planning is liaising with universities to make sure that they get the best education they can at tertiary level. This is just reinforcing what I said earlier about our declining performance. Rio would be about here, and you can see, you know, that's a national disgrace in Australia. We have to do something about it. And so we developed what's called Australia's Winning Edge. It's a 10-year program. It started in 2012, and you can see the goals are very specific. Top 5 in the Olympics and Paralympics. Well, didn't happen. So questions will be asked. Heads will roll. We don't know who's yet. 20 plus world champions annually. It's very performance oriented. This is what the Australian public demand for their investment. It's not the same as every country, but it is something that the Australians are happy with, I think. And what it means is that the funding goes to those who are already strong. It is not, it's a meritocracy, not a democracy here. The ones who are strong get more. The ones who are weak have to get strong before they get anything. And interestingly enough, the best value gold medal for Australia came in the modern pentathlon, because they received almost nothing, and yet they won the gold medal. That causes a rethink to this. Whereas the cyclists, who get tens of millions of dollars a year, and the swimmers, who also are the highest funded, the swimmers did okay. We got 3 gold medals, but that's not enough by our standards. We were second in the medal table in swimming, but we're supposed to be challenging the Americans for top spot. The cyclists bombed out, got thrashed by Great Britain. So they can bet that their money will probably be cut in half. Now you look at that, you think, well, hang on a minute. If they had a problem winning medals with this amount of money, if we halve that, are we going to increase or decrease the prospects of them winning more medals next time? But the logic says, we strengthen the strong. You have to pull yourself up there somehow. It's an interesting strategy. These are the principles of the winning edge. That we invest. It's targeted to achieve the greatest chance. So if you have the greatest probability of success, you will get more money. A lot of it is about planning. Some people say that there's too much about planning. There's strategic plans for every 4-year period, there's one for every year, there's reporting against the key performance indicators. It's like, hang on a minute, could we just get on with the sport here? The planning and reporting becomes overly demanding, I think, on coaches. They get the right support. Now, the Australian Institute of Sport is a really high-performing research environment. Some would say too much. They moved away from performance towards research too much. Getting this balance right is also part of the challenge. But we pride ourselves on having some of the best sports scientists in the world. Good governance and evidence-based decisions are the principles of this, and we've heard about those in other countries. So it's supposed to deliver a sharper, more robust national funding and accountability model. Investment has been prioritised for sports that demonstrate the greatest chance of short, medium and long-term success, and sports that have the capability to deliver. So if you're in a sport that is not a medal prospect, you get almost zero funding. And if you look at, they would point to this and say it's working. That we claimed 115 World Championship medals across 19 sports, and so on, and done even better in the Paralympics. So it was all going very well until Rio. This is the sort of level of funding, about $340 million in the 4-year cycle, which is an increase of 10%. I have to say that European countries generally invest more than this, but we point to this as though it's a lot, but it's not by the standards of some European countries, and of course America and China. We worked out that each gold medal for us cost about $15 million. Well, in 2004, each Chinese gold medal cost over $100 million. So the scale of their investment is far outstrips any European or Australian nation. This, I think, is how we make it work between university and elite training venues. Is we have the elite athlete-friendly university program. Now there is a video there, but I think we won't worry too much. You can find it on YouTube. Just look for elite athlete-friendly university, and you'll get more information. But what every Australian university is signed up to this. There are 40 universities in Australia, not many considering the scale of the place. And what we do is that for athletes who are deemed to be eligible, the universities will do certain things for them. So this is the eligibility, and you can see a lot of it is about being nominated by the AIS or State Institute, but others it's a lot about professional sports. And then this again, you might wish to look at the Sydney University Elite Athlete Program. You can start this one? Okay.
I guess just being an elite sports person, yeah, it's just my life.
I'm extremely competitive. I don't like losing. I never have, and I probably never will.
I love racing, and I love the feeling I get from achieving something within my sport.
Australia on the gold hand of Germany.
I always hope to be in the Olympic Games, but until it actually happens, I think it's something that is always just a dream.
That's how Olympic Valley qualifying to look for
Being elite, it's not just something that you do for a few hours a day. You need to combine every facet of your life to succeed.
Becoming part of the elite athlete program is very important for me because in itself it's an achievement. To become a member of that group of people who excel at what they do. The biggest thing for an elite athlete is support. The elite athlete program provides that.
The University of Sydney's programs meant that the teams are dreaming of going to 2 Olympics.
That's a beautiful job there from the lieutenant.
Germany's first Olympic Games, scoring his first goal.
And getting a degree, getting a career, and it just allows me to fit it all in.
It provides the opportunity to, I guess, finish our study and excel in sport, and that's just the greatest gift you can ever have.
Every university has a program similar to that. So that if you are selected as an elite athlete into the elite athlete program, certain things are given to you. So if you look at my university, this is our elite athlete program. This is what they get. They get scholarships, and this is not a massive amount of money. They still have to work, but they will be given a few $1,000s. They get access to competition grants to enable them to travel overseas. They get, and this is where it comes down to their study. They get extensions to their assignment. They may get deferred exams. We are online education providers. We have 28,000 students, but 70% of them study online. So an elite athlete can be traveling the world for their competition and still study with us, submit their assignments online, have online tutorials, and so on. So every one of our lectures is sent out as a podcast. So it helps them plan their year, and they get assign somebody to work with them, not just for the 1 year, but throughout their career. They can often study across institutions. They might say, look, I'm going to be in Europe for this summer, or for this winter, I should say, and okay, well, you can go to that university and take that course, and we'll give you credit for it. So we do a lot of that.
Who pays for that?
Who pays? Well, in Australia, the student pays, but they do it on the basis of a government loan. We call it HECS. So the government pays, but they get a debt, and they have to pay that debt back when their salary reaches a certain level. Yeah? So it's not free, unlike some countries. So that means that they can take their courses from wherever. And then again, flexibility is the key word for our students. We try to give them flexibility, even in a negotiated curriculum, a negotiated assessment. So it is not just everyone does the same thing. Okay, so just to conclude, sport universities have advantages, but I believe they also have disadvantages, as I've tried to allude. Not all countries adopt this model. There are many different models that can work well. And the decentralised model, in some respects, may be superior in certain cultural contexts. And I think residential centres, whilst they have advantages, in my experience, they have several disadvantages as well. So before I finish, I just want to tell you about a couple of initiatives. These are free. I'm committed now, every book that I write will be free. This is the latest one. It's called Secrets of Asian Sports Psychology. You can access it from that site. It's the world's first Creative Commons licensed book on sports psychology. And to give you an example of the chapters, we have archery in Korea. So we try to, what's the secret of those Korean archers? We have baseball in Japan, for example. We have diving in China. And actually we have here golf in Taiwan. It's the story of Yang Seng, who became #1 golfer in the world. And the other thing that we have is I have produced an online course which is free. It's called Elite Sport Performance Psychological Perspectives, and it can be accessed from that website there. And when we ran it last year, we had more than 1,000 people take the course from 110 countries. And it's still there. So at the moment, we just need it open. And you can see some of the things that ran from those days, but we're running it again later, early next year. So that's a gift to you guys if you want to follow up with that. And that's it. Cheers.
I would like to thank you very much for Dr. Peter Perry's excellent speech. In fact, this is very opportunity for us to hear the perspective from a different country. I think this我在想事实上这么长的一个演讲，我没有办法去做一个全部的一个就是一个 translate。但是我这边讲几个比较重要的一个 point. Please allow me to explain a little bit.
Good luck.
I won't take so long.
You could have given the lecture.
基本上我想得到 Peter Perry 用一个非常风趣的方式，但是去讲述了一个跟我们国家非常不一样的一个 system。那第一个部分是他在以前的时候曾经参加过很多，就是从小培养这种 sport club。那这种 club 它现在在这个至少大Australia已经慢慢的不采取这样的一个方式。那事实上也跟我们做过审视嘛，因为现在好像台湾有一些不同 sport 尝试想用这样的一个方式去做。那第二个部分，它主要是讲述他自己的过去的经验，在世界各国里面他的一个发展的一个前景，包括在马来西亚，在这个巴西，他们一个私人的机构来培训这些运动员，还有他提供了一个不同的一个经验在NCAA这个部分，它不是由国家的一个资助，而是由学校自己的一个系统去资助这些运动员，这好像跟我们国家的方式确实是有点不太一样。那第三个主要的方式是在 Australia 他们是怎么做的呢？我们也发现他们有一个截然非常不同的一个方式，那就是呢，它不是资助运动员本身，不是发奖这边本身，而是 他们采用 decentralized 的方式，就是在澳洲每个国家，应该讲每个地区里面都有一些特殊的运动项目。而运动员，如果你有兴趣在这些项目，他就去到这些特殊的学校。而这些学校并不是国家训练中心，而是由学校自主设立了这个单项的一个 facility， 给他们很好的 facility 去训练，让这些运动员去训练，同时也可以去学习他们的一个课程。换句话来讲，他们不是像国家训练中心一样每天都在练习，而是他们在自我的大学的这个学科里面，他们还有时间去做训练，这是两个截然不同的一个方式。那他们这个所谓的 Australia Institute of Sport， 他们给予的是提供给这些大学，希望他们都有赛 contract 的一些协同，希望这些合同，希望他们提供在这个单项里面最好的服务，最好的这些服务给予这些特定的运动员。我想这样的一个制度跟我们台湾制度确实有很大的不同。当然，我们不能说这是好的做法，因为这是非常 different country。尤其大家已经讲过，这个当选手给他们福利是，他们不需要上课，但是可以去外面比赛的时候该怎么办？他们有很多 online 课程，但是这些 online 课程，他们本身这个在 Australia 的学生，他们已经非常这个习惯这样的 system， 而在台湾身上，可能这个文化的关系还是确实有它的不同。那我相信这个Dr. Peter Perry 提供这样一个资讯，确实可以给我们很多不同的想法。Okay, I have a question. So right now is we open a discussion for this forum. So anyone have any question or comment, that would be very welcome. Please. Former Vice President, President John.
Mr. Peter, I'm the Deputy Chair. I've been to the Australia Tennis Open twice in Melbourne. That's a great, wonderful event.
In Melbourne?
Yes, it's wonderful. I think the next year in the Taiwan, in 2017, Universal Game in Taipei, we given some suggestion from the Australia Open Taipei. Thank you.
Well, I was very impressed to hear that you're holding the World University Games right here. It's a fantastic achievement. It's almost as big as the Olympics. And you're having some of the sports right here at the university, our sports. So I first of all say congratulations to you all, and I'm sure your organisation is going to be fantastic, I know that, but good luck for that competition. I hope to come and see something.
那我在讨论，看起来是我们国家到时候要举办一些这个很大型的比赛，在网球的部分，是跟这个他也非常 embrace 我们国家的一个成长。Any others? So we still have 2 minutes. So, okay. Now I know you still have many questions because of the time constraint. We are not able to have more questions. But I believe that Dr. Peter Terry will be around here. And if you have any questions, I think Dr. Terry will be very pleasure to talk with you. Yes. Right now, I would like to have the NDSU to present us appreciation speakers to Dr. Peter Terry.
Thank you very much for inviting me.